everyone. It's your favorite CEO, Miss Flo, and I'm here at Blerdcon with.
Greg Anderson Elysée.
And can you just explain your booth real quick? Because I stumbled across it, and you are a comic book creator and publisher.
Sure. So I am the writer and creator of Is Nana the Werewolf Spider. It is based off of the stories of a non-city spider from West Africa and Caribbean folklore. My character is his son. It's the two of them trying to stop creatures from causing chaos while trying not to drive each other crazy at the same time. I use this series as a way to introduce people to more black mythological gods and heroes because, as you know, in school it's not really required for us to be educated on them. It's usually the Greek gods, European fairy tales, and so on. So as the series goes on, they meet characters from Africa, Caribbean, African American, and showcase that we got our own gods and heroes from all our various black cultures that we could draw stories from.
That's amazing. And like, how did you stumble across this African lore?
So I was always a huge Greek mythology fan growing up. My mom introduced me to some of them, like Clash of the Titans. I was obsessed with Hercules and Xena and stuff like that. And then when I got to high school, I found a book in art class that collected stories and biographies of figures from various cultures. And after going through all the Greek mythology section again, I looked at some Caribbean stuff, like I have a Haitian background. I looked into Haitian mythology and traditions, and I realized, oh shoot, we have our own gods ourselves. And they had deities from various other cultures. I just got fascinated about learning more about the black figures from other parts of the Caribbean, from Africa, even the African American legends and stuff like that. So when I got to college, I took some elective courses on black studies, and one of them we went into like more about Anansi and Anansi becoming Brer Rabbit when it came to America and all this other stuff. And I was like, yo, this is fascinating stuff. And I realized the difference where I had to take an elective to find out about like the black traditional figures, but Greek mythology is a requirement. And knowing European fairy tale characters is also a requirement for kids at a certain age and everything. So I wanted to try to change that narrative just a little bit.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because in schools, I'm a teacher actually, so like I understand the struggle of like not seeing us in the curriculum, whether it's in history or in literature, because we have to stick to what is required by the state. You know what I mean? So like I'm glad that you are introducing a folklore that where we can see ourselves. Because like I said, it's all about representation. We don't really get to really see us in our own original, versions of like being a hero. So you growing up, like what were some role models or like characters that you may have inspired you to create your own comic book?
Shoot. I will say, like a lot of kids, Batman was my first obsession. And I discovered the X-Men soon after. I remember being so hyped when I learned about Storm and Bishop because I was like, "Oh shoot, they're black!" And I sometimes I'll mention this too. When I was watching Hercules, I remember how excited I was when the Nebula character, who was played by Gina Torres, showed up because I was like one of the first black people in that show. When I was just like, "Who is this beautiful woman?" And she was a badass. She was literally helping Hercules and Aeolus and stuff like that. So that like blew my mind, and I think that opened up, more of what I wanted to see, even as a young kid. Just seeing that, it's funny because sometimes you will hear some people like, "Oh, as a kid, I didn't need representation," but I'm like, it was just cool to see us as like a part of these mystery stories or these fantasy stories or these horror stories, not getting killed in the horror story,
Right.
and so that's pretty much, I think that has stuck with me as a kid, and I'm doing this now.
I think when people say that they don't need representation is because you're already seen. Like for us, it's like we're almost invisible, or like our stories are not being told. Or there's one unflattering version of our story being told, but not the other side. We're always portrayed negatively and not in a positive light. So I'm glad that you are your own independent publishing your own stories and give it this like more variety. You know what I mean? Not just like an American style, but like something like take us back to the homeland. Like, do you have any roots in Africa or like African origin?
So I have a Haitian background. Yeah, both my parents are from Haiti. And even though I was born in Brooklyn, my first language and first memory was being in Haiti. So I definitely have a lot of my love, appreciation for the Haitian culture. And a lot of, as I said too, when I got introduced to like the black gods, me learning about the Haitian gods was like my introduction to learning more about Africa and African culture and African mythology and stuff like that. And not even just mythology, just the traditional faith and the spirituality. I think it's amazing. And Haiti is one of the countries that is, at least the ones who follow the traditions. It's the closest to a lot of the original West African system and tradition. So I take a lot of pride in that.
Well, that's good. And then with the main character in your comic book, you can raise them up so that everybody can see. Like, how much of yourself is in the book?
You can take a look. Check it
Yeah.
out.
He's making some sales right now. It's like,
How much of myself? So I actually always say every character that I write has a bit of myself, even the most fucked up, messed up characters, because I feel like they're like extensions. In order for me to make them stand out, there's a lot of that. When it comes to Isnana himself, I would say his perseverance is something, and I guess a bit of the kindness that he portrays. And I use a lot of inspiration from my pops and I in terms of our relationship, because it is essentially also a father and son story, because Anansi is a huge character in the book. He's not just to be there to be the pops, like they're both tend to share, at least for volume 1 and 2, they tend to share a lot of the stories together. And yeah, I wanted to do a black father and son type of story, and a lot of that I remember how my pops and I interact, and that influences some of the stories as well.
oh, well, we love to see like a nice father-son story in bonding because like I always bonded with my father, especially around like comic books and anything sci-fi related. Was that kind of like your relationship with your dad?
No, even though my pops was always very supportive of me with the arts, but I wouldn't say he's like a geek in any way. But he was the person that I went to when I started to discover about the black gods, especially like the Haitian gods, because when it comes to the Haitian deities, a lot of it is very associated with voodoo, and there's that negative connotations due to colonialism and white supremacy messing up how people view their spirituality. So my mom is one of those people who looks down on it. So she was not somebody that you go to. But I went to my pops. My pops was like, "Oh, what you want to know? I can tell you everything I know." So if anything, he helped me get to that path of figuring out what I want to do with these stories.
Okay. So do you practice voodoo at all, or is it just like not that often? Like where you at with
So
it?
I am not a voodooist, but I have respect for the culture. I think it's a beautiful belief system, at least what I know of it. And there's a lot of it where you have to be initiated to understand some of it. And for me, as I said, it's more so of a respect that I have for it, and knowing the history and how it's actually had been the thing that helped us get our independence. And unfortunately, because of that power that it gave us, it is now used as a way to bastardize us and to make us look, evil and stuff. But I feel like lately, the past couple of years, there's been a shift. I think a lot of black folks have been embracing more of their roots, and they're realizing how much of African spirituality means to them. And a lot of that also goes into people discovering voodoo. And I think that's just been really beautiful to see.
And I'm glad you're sharing that because, like we said earlier, anything black related often gets turned into like a negative connotation. So it's good to see artists like you working to kind of change the narrative because if you don't end up telling your own story, somebody else is going to tell it for you and they're going to get it wrong. So like I'm glad that you're out here educating people on a lot of the misconceptions. Like, what are some other misconceptions that we have of voodoo that, been told?
That it is devil worship, it is evil, no good can come out of it, that it's only to curse people. And of course, I feel like with every religion or belief system, there's people who can abuse it and there's people who use it to actually for the good. And just like that, there's voodoo, there's people who do abuse it, and then there's people who use it as a way to bless people and to heal people. And there's also a celebration and worship of our ancestors and stuff like that. So, yeah. And when you watch a lot of old school horror films where we would be represented, it was always used as a source of horror, like we're the reason why this evil is happening. But lately, there's been some stories and some shows and movies showing voodoo being used to battle the evil now, and that's been really cool to see.
And thank you so much for speaking with me today. Is there anything else that you would like to promote? Like, where can we find your comic book?
So there is webwaycomics.ecwid.com. We could find all my Isnana books, and one of my most recent books is Dreamer from Scholastic and Kaepernick Publishing, where I team up with Akeem Aliru, who is an actual black hockey player, and he is known as the whistleblower who exposed some of the racism that happens in the hockey world, and that caused a huge storm in the industry. And the book also goes into his parents, his mom being from the Ukraine, his dad from Nigeria, interracial couple living in both countries, dealing with racism and discrimination, being together, and him Akeem discovering racism at such a young age, simply because he was doing really well in hockey. And so yeah, those are those books you can find. It's not a 1 and 2 and Dreamer on Amazon as well. And my site, my link tree, just type in my name, Greg Anderson Elysée, Elysee. You'll find all my information.
And again, thank you so much for this glowing conversation. And I'll check you guys next time on a new episode of Neon Mike. Bye!